So we've got 5 minutes before we go to our break, and there's tea and coffee available next door, and water, things like that. And so quickly, does anyone have a burning question that they would like to ask? Yes, can I give you the microphone?
Okay, so with regards to the social prescribing model, 2 questions around that. Firstly, the directory services, are they tying into existing directory services so that we haven't got multiplication and excess information out there that families are looking in several places for? Because I know there's a digital transformation plan happening at the moment. So we've got Shropshire Choices, Send Local Offer, all that sort of stuff. Is that all tying in together? Second question, how is all of this feeding in strategically? Because this seems to me like a perfect opportunity for understanding future commissioning needs and for understanding and influencing existing commissioning, and to make sure that if you are identifying gaps through those conversations, or if you're identifying this is a phenomenal service in the south of the county, uplift it, move it up north, that could work brilliantly. Are you tying into that? Where's that happening?
If I just answer the question about the directories, the information at the moment is on the Cube website. It is available to anyone who wants it. It isn't particularly tied into other directories at the moment, but there are future plans. It's something we are talking about. The approach we take is that it doesn't really matter how many directories we have, because it makes it easier for people to gain access if there's multiple places that they can go to. It's as I said, we've done this on a shoestring. It's the only way at the moment that we've been able to pull all that information together. But there is plans for it for the future. We're just not sure quite yet how that's going to work out.
And if I just add to that about the directories, so the Rachel Robinson, the Director of Public Health, has been convening a wellbeing in communities group. It's just at the beginning of it, but that group is looking at the directories and having a look at all of the directories and having a think with our IT, with Shropshire Council IT, as to what could be done to make it a little bit more seamless and access a little bit easier. So that work is underway, but it is slow, and it's been a problem for a long time. Yeah, so we are looking at it, and we are tied into those. So yeah. With regard to the strategic side of things, so the Healthy Lives is the group, the steering group that has been overseeing the development of social prescribing, and that is a partnership steering group that reports to the Health and Wellbeing Board, where the Health and Wellbeing Board has received reports on an almost every 2-month basis around social prescribing, so fed into strategic planning that way and fed into sort of commissioning intentions. And we've worked closely with Shropshire Council and the contracts with the voluntary sector to embed social prescribing within those. So Neil Evans, who's here, we've worked closely with Neil to ensure that those ends have sort of tied up. With regard to the STP, social prescribing will feature within the priorities of the prevention in place element of the STP priorities, either through the current priorities. From a prevention point of view, those priorities are weight and healthy weight and alcohol, but within healthy weight there's that link to social prescribing, but also from an STP perspective there's a national imperative to deliver through PCN social prescribing, and so through that route it is also tied in. Does that answer the question? Yeah, thank you.
From the point of view of Healthwatch, I think it's always difficult to have an up-to-date directory of services when things change so quickly and all the time, and I think it's a huge investment to be able to pull one thing together that is actually accurate and a live resource for people. So I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge in Shropshire. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks very much. My question is around access. First of all, I wondered how I would direct anybody towards the AAW service and the Sustain service, and I wondered, they seem to be overlapping to me and they seem to be doing very similar things. So I wondered, it seems so confusing how people would know which one to go to. And the other part of my access question is, if the social prescribing is starting off with the GPs, are all the GPs totally signed up to it, and are they all as good as each other as pushing the to be able to push the service round in a sort of equal way?
So a couple of things there. Would anyone like to take that question? Jackie. Thank you.
Yeah, so about access, as I said before, Shropshire Council understand the impact that advice and advocacy services have on prevention, and that stops people getting into crisis. But rather than setting up a separate advice and advocacy service, there are, as I said, organisations that have had a long-standing in Shropshire, so they commission an advice and advocacy service, not a separate. So actually access is within those organisations for the public. You can still you can go onto other websites, you can go into Google, you can look at the directories, and it will be Citizens Advice, Age UK, A4U, and Taking Part. So if you need advocacy or advice, so that's the open door system that the council are supporting. And then for professionals and for people who are very vulnerable, there's a direct route in for people to be referred in. So that's how the access is. It's not creating another system. It's not creating another service. It's just making best use of those organisations that are out there and embedded in the organisation. So as I said, I've got leaflets on each. I have to contact each of the organisations. But about duplication, I think Sustain's really important in that giving advice to people to sustain their tenancies. Other people's issues around debt or welfare benefits aren't around their tenancy, so that's their specialism and that's our specialism, and there's very little duplication. In fact, there's more need out there than we can meet, so there's very little duplication, and we all set to ourselves.
I just wondered where I'd send someone, that's all.
Are you from what organisation are you
A
from?
voluntary organisation would come into contact with a lot of needy people,
Mhm.
and I don't know where to send them, because there seems to be a proliferation of organisations. I just want someone to say, ring this number and it's sorted, but it seems to be about 10 different places for them to go.
So if somebody needs advice and they're an older person, you go to Age UK, that's what they're known for. If you've got a person who's under pension age and needs advice, it's Citizens Advice and other organisations. And if it's not a fit for us, then we all work together, so we'll be able to refer that person on to the right organisation. We work very hard in trying to understand what each other give. So as a voluntary organisation, you would signpost somebody. So.
They can find on the GP.
Yeah, I'll go back to them just there. I'll just finish this.
Hi, I'm Sue Adams from Sustain. If you go onto any of the partnership landlords' websites, there is information there about how to make a referral, including a referral form. We handle all the referrals from a central point, and then they're all sent out to the relevant person who then will deal with that particular case. So if you just wanted to look at for example, the Care Plus or Housing Plus website, the referral form's on there, and then they will then send that to the appropriate agency who will then deal with it. Similarly, if you contact the council and say, I'm interested in making a referral to Sustain, they also have information at their first point of contact and can send you details about how to access into the service. So from that perspective, you can go through any of the individual partners to access the service, but then we will ourselves then direct that referral to the most appropriate person to deal with that.
Thank you. I'm just going to finish off the question because there was a question about social prescribing and GP practices.
Thank you. So we have had really positive relationships working with the different GP practices. So what we hope to get when we start working with a new practice is a GP champion, and there's always a great amount of enthusiasm for working in working with us, and there is invariably a GP who's very keen to work with us from a practice. And from there, it kind of develops and snowballs around that kind of development of understanding of how it works and how others within the practice, whether it's a nurse or a GP, can make referrals into the service. So we're really positive about our relationship with practices, and I think that as health, the transformation and primary care networks develop, we see that as a really positive thing, because we see that kind of from a strategic level, thinking about the needs of a particular area and then working closely with the practices in that area on those needs. So I had a really positive meeting recently at the Alverley practice, where the GPs there were totally on board with understanding that and how this could help to connect voluntary sector with social care, with health, and we're really, really positive. So in particular, that voluntary sector element about how we work better together in connecting up. So yeah, we're pleased.
Just one last question, and we've already had a hand at the back, I'm afraid. Anyone else, please feel free to grab people at the break. So last question.
Well, I just wanted to pick up on what a couple of other people have already said. It's the ongoing problem of information, and I think at this level it's too complicated for the ordinary person in the street. We were talking about it at AGK this morning. We had a consultation in Ellesmere a couple of weeks ago, and what we're hearing all the time is the ordinary person says, I don't know where to go. Now, I mean, some people have said, well, you know, could the initial place be the library? I don't know if that would work, but it's way too complicated. The ordinary person who comes across a problem for the first time.
And that is a message that came through to us when we were doing our work around the SDP long-term plan. Does anyone want to answer that? Or are we just going to accept that it is an issue and it's something that we all need to overcome? I think for me, the most important thing is if the professionals know what is available, then that is a way into services for people. But as all these organisations come together, I think it's important that they agree a shared approach for communicating with the public about what is available in as simple and straightforward a way as possible. Yeah, Finola.
I would just add, and I've heard it mentioned in several of the presentations here, it's often around the person who can coordinate things for that individual. And that, I think, takes the heat out of that pressure to who do I find, what's the right place for this problem. If we have a system and services where if people do have a problem, they know they can go there, they know they can ring if they've got an issue, then they're not going to worry, are they? Because they'll know there's always help there and they can always get an answer. And that's I think this will be one of the gains around integration. You don't necessarily have to know everything that's out there, but we'll have services and people within them that are coordinating and engaging with the public, with our people out there. And I think that is probably the way you really overcome that problem.
Thank you, and thank you everyone. I was just going to say, and don't forget that Healthwatch should have a signposting function, so we can always be the people who help. So I'm just conscious of time, so we've got 10 minutes now for tea, coffee, water next door, and then hopefully you'll all be able to stay for the next part. Great, thank you very much.